Fluid testing is a super important part of your preparation for your swim, regardless of if it's a cold or a hot swim or the distance. Now, this is important because it shapes your feed plan and it shapes your preparation before and during, and it can tell us more information about your sweating and your peeing and anything else we may need to change. So, to do a fluid test, as you can see on the screen here, you can do it either in the pool or you can do it in the open water if that is easily doable for you. Ideally, you want to stop eating an hour beforehand, but if you're doing a morning session and you want a small snack, that's okay. You then want to get to the pool or the ocean or the sea, take some scales with you or do it as a training group as well. And what you want to do is weigh yourself before you jump in the water, weigh yourself with your cap and goggles on and your togs. Then jump in for 15 minutes or so to warm up, then jump back out again. Bring a few towels because you'll need them to dry off multiple times. So you want to dry off now, go to the toilet if you need to, don't drink anything. So we're not going to drink anything for an hour in this session. Then jump back on the scales, try and dry yourself as much as possible, leaving your cap and goggles on, and drying your togs off as much as possible. Write this weight down as your second weight, and then jump back in, swim for ideally an hour, but if you do it for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, we can extrapolate the results as well. And I want you to swim at your event swim pace. Now, this is okay if you're doing it in 28-degree water like our Queensland swimmers, or if you're doing it in 13 degrees in the ocean. I want you to write down the air temperature and the pool or the water temperature, and then we can look at that and extrapolate the results for cooler swims or warmer swims, depending on what your sweat rate is doing. So once you've swum for an hour, jump back out again, grab your towel, dry yourself off, leaving your cap and goggles still on, and write this weight down. And so what I want you to do then is minus your final weight from your second weight. So you can see on the screen here, if there's a 1.5 kilo difference, then you're losing 1.5 liters an hour. For many of you, it's probably going to be between 0.4 to 0.8 maybe. Some of you may put on 100 grams or 200 grams, and that's simply maybe because you're swallowing a little bit of water or you haven't dried off enough, or you have just not sweated that much today, and so you're kind of stable. And that's okay. Often I'll get you to do this at least twice in your preparation so we can see what's going on, because sometimes things can be different in training as one-offs. And this is then going to dictate how much we do in feeds. Now, you don't need to replace 100% of this, because that is going to lead to overhydration most likely. And we'll talk about the risks of, say, SIPE in a moment in regards to this. So with this, you ideally want to be maybe aiming for about 70 to 90%. And again, we'll work on this. We'll look at other sweat rates, how your stroke rate is, how your body position is, how much you can tolerate in feeds, and how often you're peeing. So they are all very important. And with this, then you might be, it helps dictate, do we need to do 175 mil feeds? Do we do 200 mil, 250, 300 mil, or are there points in your swim that we need to just give you extra fluid to make up your requirements? And so we use this in relation to how much you're peeing. So if you're not peeing often, then maybe we need more fluid. Or if you're peeing really regularly, then we can probably have a little less, or we can look at the carbohydrate content and what that's doing to your blood glucose levels. So this, like I said, is important to prevent overhydration more than dehydration. So you can get away with a little bit of dehydration in your swim, particularly if it's a cold swim, but we want to be preventing overhydration. And so many of you have probably heard about SIPE before, maybe you haven't, but this is one of the risks, particularly in your cold water swimming or if you are overhydrating. And this is when your lungs will fill up with more fluid. And Symptoms at the beginning can look a little bit like leading to hypothermia, but this is when your team and your communication and your trust in me and the team is really important. So I know if this is happening and you're close to finishing, or you've maybe only just started, and all the time, effort, and years that you've put into training and the money, but you and your health and being alive is the most important. And so we really need to be mindful of this. So looking for your symptoms and getting your crew to look for if you're getting shortness of breath, but that with wheezing or some confusion or that crackling in your chest, getting a bit more thicker phlegm, confusion and disorientation. So that can come with hypothermia as well. But putting this all together and monitoring, I should have put in here, monitoring your peeing, telling your crew when you aren't peeing or if you are peeing, because this is imperative. Because this would dictate, should we be giving you less fluid to let it clear out and get through, or do we need more? Now, this can happen from overhydration, but it can, or drinking more before your swim. So you don't need to be drinking like a liter of fluid before your swim unless you have high sweat requirements. But it can also do with any pre-existing medical conditions, particularly around heart conditions and high blood pressure. But the thought is also to do with that cold immersion and that stress on your body. So that's why I've talked about in other videos the importance of cold acclimation, and not just swimming once or twice in cold water and getting through it, but doing it regularly and getting your body adapted to that stress, and breath work as well. But that combined with then some of that vasoconstriction and the blood pooling, plus your heart rate is higher because you're working more, so there's more stress on your heart, and then that can cause different pressures to build up in your arteries. So something to be really mindful of, something to get your crew to be very mindful of and monitoring, plus combining with your fluid test, your feed practice, and good communication between us, then this shouldn't be an issue. But make sure that you do a fluid test soon in training and you